what's hard now is going to become easy in 6 months or a year from now.
Yep.
Then we'll work on the next thing.
Yep.
And life I mean, there's things right now I'm working on that seem hard and intimidating and impossible.
Yeah.
But I know maybe 5 years from now, it's going to go, oh, that was easy. Now what's the next
Exactly.
step, right? Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Solid. We are on episode 22, and on this episode, my co-host Jeff Fieldstad and I, we discuss leadership. And we've been wanting to do this one for quite a while, so we kind of go through a lot of the experiences we've had with leadership principles, great leaders we've learned from, and hope that you can get a lot out of it. I think you will. Be sure you like and subscribe, and feel free to comment on what you like and what you'd like to see maybe different, or maybe if you have some guests you'd like us to have on, we'd love to hear from you. We appreciate your feedback, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
A leader is somebody who does it first and then shows others to do it with their example. And then eventually their example gets so good that others seek out their wisdom and knowledge in duplicating whatever they did, right? And that's a leader. And I think too often that people who think leadership is just transferring knowledge, not realizing that leadership is just like, all right, I see somebody doing this, and then if I mimic, it's like children is the ultimate exposure of what leadership is, right? It's because sometimes your kids, you'll be somewhere and your kids will do something and you're like, do I do that? Like, right? And you're like so embarrassed that you're watching your child do this thing, and you're like, they get it from me.
Yeah.
We're leaders without knowing it, and our children watch us and mimic us. And that's leadership. That's what it is. And if we changed our actions or the way we responded to a situation, then our children change the way they respond or act in a situation, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you hear leadership is influence. That's a basic way to say it.
Yep.
But, I don't think, you're not a leader or someone is not a leader until somebody wants to follow them. So, it's one thing to set a good example, and that's important and that's good. But also, until people want to follow that, you're really not leading them, so there's got to be, I don't know. I know.
Well, and isn't that what a leader is someone who creates an inspiring enough example that other people want to follow?
Yeah.
And one of the things I always say, if you think you're a leader and nobody's following, you're not a leader. You're just going for a walk.
Yeah. I mean, what you said, transferring knowledge, anybody can transfer knowledge.
Yes.
There's a lot of people transferring knowledge,
right.
But then you go, okay, what are you doing? And you're like, anytime before I listen to anybody, like I'll hear what they have to say, but then before I follow any of that, I look at their life.
Yes.
That's just what I automatically do. I've learned that, right? Early on when I wasn't I'm still not very wise, I don't think. But back when I was really...
I would say you're pretty wise, bro.
Unwise.
Yeah.
Someone would say something I liked, and I would just almost blindly follow that.
Yeah.
Now, somebody says something, I go, man, that sounds really, really good. Mm-hmm. But then I'm always looking at their life just to see, okay, what's their life like?
Yeah, because their life is a result of their philosophies, mm-hmm. right? And then their actions. So like, hey, this is what I believe, and then your beliefs cause your actions, right? And then your actions determine what your life looks like. And so real quickly, right? What is this philosophy and these actions going to turn out to? You look at someone's life and decide, do I want to follow that?
And nothing wears my butt out more than when I'm listening to somebody who's saying a lot of great things and they don't live it.
Right.
That wears me out.
I will almost wonder, I don't know, but I almost wonder that there's got to be some disconnect, because I feel like a lot of people do that. Like they'll read a book, right? They'll read a book and they'll go, you know who needs to read this book? I'm like, yeah, you, right? Like, right?
How about follow it? How about read it and actually do what it says?
Yeah, because if we become this person, if we're leaders and we do this, we expect that other people around us are naturally going to do the things that we do. We're going to attract people that get inspired by the things that we do. We're going to repel people who don't like the things that we do or say. And that's what a leader is. Like, we attract a certain kind of people that we're looking for. And if we don't like that, we have to change the things that we do and the things that we say. And that's going to change the kind of a person that's attracted to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You attract what you are.
Yeah.
And one thing that, and I always appreciated one of our leaders from our financial business, Hector Lamarck. He was always big on, I'm not into the motivational speaking, right?
Right.
I'm not here to motivate you. I'm here to train motivated people. If you're here, you're already motivated. So I shouldn't have to motivate you,
right?
Because motivation is very short-lived. And for me, motivational speeches, although they can be inspiring for a minute, they tend to unmotivate me more than anything because it's hype. And I remember I started probably as a missionary when I served my 2-year mission. Going out there and being put into early on in my mission, you get trained, and then I was called as what they call a district leader in my mission early on. And I remember writing home, my mom writing me back saying, "Hey, this is great. You're going to learn leadership." I didn't really know what that meant, but I was like, sounds cool to be a leader.
Yeah.
But I started to learn that I needed to be doing all the right things during my mission to be able to lead other missionaries in a way where they wanted to follow me. I mean,
right.
And I don't know if I, for whatever reason, even growing up doing construction when I was young and working for my cousin who was very ambitious, who was a general contractor, and he was a leader just because he was such a hard worker and, great family. He's he's actually married to my cousin, and, his dad and my dad worked for the same company. And so, he had that example already there that I wanted to follow. And then he was getting the results that I wanted to, right? He was successful, made a lot of money, had nice things, and he was still really young in business, and I could see him working, and it didn't intimidate me that he was working all the time. He almost demanded a tremendous amount of respect from me. So when I got on my mission, I remembered that, and so I worked hard on my mission too, and for the most part was able to, I think, people listening to this that might have served with me in my mission might disagree, but I think most would agree that they wanted to go out with me. They wanted to go out and teach the gospel with me and follow my example for the most part, right? I mean, I was young and I had a lot to learn and didn't do it right all the time, but that was my mission. And then I got home from my mission and then got into financial services. And I just, to me, it takes way too much energy to try to force people to follow you, to like try to hype them up to follow you, like follow.
It's manipulative.
Yeah. And it's just, it just drains you, So instead of doing that, I looked at leaders in the company that were successful. And then I looked at, okay, what did they do to have that success? And that's what I'm going to model. And I don't need to worry about trying to get people to follow me because I'm just going to model that, get the results, and the results will be what people want to follow.
Right.
That's what I did. So, You know this. I mean, my story was I'm going to go out and get 3 to 5 new names and numbers every day. Yep. I'm going to follow up with them within 24 hours to meet with them one-on-one, to show them what I'm doing, show them my business, show them my company. And I'm going to hire 2 to 4 new direct people to me every single month. 2 to 4 new personal agents every month. And I'm going to teach those people how to recruit 2 or 3 people. I'm going to recruit 10 plus a month in my team that I'm going to be responsible for. And I'm just going to do that until my income and my business has so much success that people start to catch on and then they start doing it.
Yeah, because what happens when you do it long enough, it was like me. Like I saw you do that, right? I met you. You were making 20, 30 grand a month. Mm-hmm. And I looked at that and went, I want your life. And I still to this day, man, I can remember it vividly. He said, Jeff, you do 2 things. First thing is do the things that take no talent, right? And when it comes to leadership, there really is no talent involved. It's just showing up early, staying late, fundamentals. Great
attitude.
Yep.
A level attitude. Not a great one day, right?
It's funny you say that because when you said something about motivation, I said the problem with people who really love getting super motivated is that they love it because then their attitude is like pushed to this like positive like peak. But then usually what happens too when they're not around it is they have this this negative valley where when no one's around, they're beating themselves up. And so their life is like a yo-yo. And I think that leaders are emotionally consistent because they're motivationally consistent, right? Their motivation is consistent regardless of how they feel. It's like, just because I'm not having a great day doesn't make me unmotivated.
Yeah.
Right. I still want to win. I still have the desire to succeed just as bad as I did yesterday, even though today isn't as, maybe something happened, right? When your top guys quit or you're having a challenge or whatever it may be. Yeah, I might be having a challenge, but that doesn't change my motivation. My motivation is still consistent. And I think a lot of big leaders you see are very emotionally consistent because their desire is consistent. And that comes back to their thinking. They're not looking for these motivational highs.
No.
And it's exciting for them to hear, but I don't know about you, but even if I do hear an incredible motivational talk, it doesn't like drive my emotions through the roof because I felt that way before the talk started.
Yeah.
Right. I just listened to it and go, yeah, there's some good points. It's amazing. I'm going to continue performing at a high level. And this just reinforces my feeling coming in.
Yeah, when the person that's giving that motivational speech lives the life you want to have, then it's like, okay, you got my attention.
Yes.
I want to learn from your mindset and the way you think, and not just how you think, but also how you, I would always say, how you are. You know? I want to be how that's not proper English, but how they are, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Mimic that.
Yes, exactly. Like, what are the actions you take, right? Because we know that if you have a consistent thought, that makes it a belief, right? And when you believe something, you take a certain action. And then when you take action, that turns into results. So you can reverse engineer someone's life and go, what are their results? You can tell the actions they're taking. And based on the actions, you know what their beliefs are. And if you know what their beliefs are, you know what they've been thinking. Oh. And this is why whenever you come to success, you're like, all right, if you change your thoughts, you'll change your life. That's because if you change the consistent thought, the thought from some people, I'm not good enough, or can I do this? If you just change the thought, I am good enough, I can do this, I deserve to win, I deserve to be successful. Consistently, you tell yourself that long enough, I am a pro, I do succeed, I do perform at high levels, I am a producer, I am a recruiter, I am a closer, I do overcome objections. Whatever that may be, you tell yourself that long enough, you believe it, then you take actions on it, right?
Exactly.
Because you're only going to perform to the level at which you see yourself, right? And then you take action on it. That's your result, right? Yeah. And so I think that is a very important when it comes to a leader, just understanding like, hey, if you're already motivated, then you do the right things. Other people are going to get motivated by your actions. And then they're going to want to go reproduce, I guess, those same actions or emulate, and I know I did that with you early on in the business because I saw your success. And when you told me that, Jeff, do the things that take no talent, I'm like, well, what takes no talent? You're like, show up early and stay late. Like, nobody does that. How many people show up early and stay late always? It's like, I always tell people, if I'm late, you probably ought to call because I'm probably dead.
There was one time you slept in one time. You were running my office.
Yep.
And you slept in and you showed up. You're like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And I was still 30 minutes early, but I was like 30 minutes later
20
than
years old too, right? How old were you? Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I remember, dude, it was like 6. You would do training at 7 a.m. on Saturday morning.
Yeah, because I was hardcore.
Yeah, which, dude, who does that? Come on. 7 a.m. on Saturday morning. And I was always there by 6. And I remember that morning my phone rang at 6:30. You're like, dude, where are you at? I'm like, oh my gosh, But that was because you always said show up early, stay late. Like, that's not hard to do, Even on our wedding day, we showed up to training. Why are you here? It wasn't because we needed to necessarily learn something else. It was because long before we made the commitment that we were going to get married, we made the commitment we were going to do the things that take no talent, right? We had already made a commitment like, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to show up early, stay late, and we're not going to change our commitment because now it's inconvenient.
Right.
Which leaders don't do that. Leaders fulfill their commitments, right?
I think, too, as you're talking about this commitment stuff, leaders have a way of making it seem fun and like cool, right? Like I always wanted to make, we're going to do training at 7 a.m. Everyone else is doing it at 9. We're going to do it at 7 because we're tougher than everybody else, right? And set that mindset. Because Art Williams, when he coached his football teams, right, he says, guys, we're going to go play these other teams. There's one thing that they're not going to be. They're not going to be tougher than us.
Right.
So just to make sure I can prove a point with you, if one of you get hurt and you're like on the ground, you better find a way to get your butt off the field because we're not coming to get you, right? And he would tell the refs, he'd say, look, if one of my players is down and they can't move, you're just going to have to move the ball over a little bit and just keep playing because I'm not taking my players off the field, right? And he said he played that entire season and not one person ever got hurt bad enough to get himself. In fact, he had one of his guys broke his leg and continued to play, right? And so I remember hearing that from Art Williams and going, man, I'm going to build my business the same way. So we were just tougher than everybody else.
Well, it's expectations, right? It's like they say that single moms are the least sick humans in the world because they don't have time to get sick. It's like a single mom doesn't have time to go, I missed work today because I don't feel good. It's like I'm playing hurt, right? And so because of that, they get sick less because they tell their minds, no, this is not an option.
Right.
And I think leaders do that. Leaders look for an edge. And leaders look for an edge to give to their people because if their people believe they have an edge, they do.
And I remember people would show up like 6:30 a.m. like happy to be there.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And like Friday night, they'd have their Friday night date night or whatever or be on appointments Friday night. And they get there early. And man, there weren't very many people that showed up late because they got razzed, right? Yeah. and it was like we had a really good environment there. And so looking at all this stuff, I mean, we had a vision of what we wanted to create. We had a vision of where we were headed. We wanted to be MVPs in the company and, $1 million earners in the company, and the team rallied around that vision. And then we looked for those people that had the same passion as us. That's who we wanted to attract. And then what I think we did a pretty good job of, and I think I could have done a better job of this, is just making sure that everybody felt like they were worth, like if there was a scale 1 to 10, 10 you're worth everything and 1 you're not, that everybody always has a 10 above their head.
Regardless of what role they play.
Regardless of what role they play, right? So they're always a 10. I know John Maxwell talks about that, right? That your worth is always a 10. Nothing you could do could ever change the way I feel about you. I love you no matter what.
Right.
But your passion level might only be a 2 or a 3.
Right.
But let's make that 2 or 3 the best 2 or 3 in the world.
Yes. It's funny you say that because the other night we were out to eat and there was a guy coming around filling everybody's water, and the table next to him made a comment about just that, he's just the water boy or something. And Jefferson, actually, we were at dinner with Jefferson and Chandel, and he goes, no, the water boy is more important than anybody here because if we're thirsty, we leave. And you just seen him light up, and we all just started saying how much we appreciate him filling our cups up with water. And then the table next to us that made the original comment started saying, yeah, we appreciate you so much. Thank you. And He just felt like $1 million, and he had one job, just fill up water.
Man, again, you look at sports, man, and there's a position, like I'm coaching my son's flag football team right now, right? I'm trying to teach those boys, look, every position, whatever position you are, that position is the most important position. Like there is no position that's more important than another one, right? And you might have the center and the quarterback that get to touch the ball every single time, but that receiver on the wide out that has to run his route, even if he doesn't get the ball, he still needs to run that route, right? Because the defense is going to cover him, right? So everybody's got an important part. I love because our center is one of Bridger's, my boy's good buddies, and he goes, so Brandon, what do I do? Coach, what do I do after I snap the ball? And I go, well, I'll teach you some routes to run, but right now your job is to get the ball to Bridger, right? That is your job. That's number one. Then yes, you're going to run out, and because you're the center, guess what? You're going to have the short routes, and you're going to get the ball. You're going to get the ball a lot of times because no one else is going to be open, and Bridger's going to be able to hit you. So making him feel super special that he's the snapper, which I think is an awesome. When you're playing flag football 5-on-5, that's probably one of the best positions in my opinion to have, right? Because you get to touch the ball on every play, and you still get to go out and get a pass, right?
Yes.
And so I think just making sure your people always feel like whatever the role they play, you've got an office manager, man, you got a very important role. Without you, this business doesn't run, right? And your family.
And that's what a leader does, is a leader places value on every position within an organization, right? Because without, like you said, without that person filling that position, the organization doesn't happen. And I think a lot of times people, if you're running a business, they don't look at the secretary or the assistant as important as the top producer. But the top producer needs the assistant.
Correct.
Right? For them to be able to continue to be a top producer, they need someone to help. And so I think that's a leader does that. Another thing that I wrote down here as you were saying that is leaders aren't scared to make mistakes or be scared, but they are scared to not do it. Right. So it's like a leader, a lot of times it knows they're going to make mistakes, knows they're going to mess up, They're going to miss some sales. They're going to whatever it is. If you're in leadership, you're going to make some mistakes. But a leader is more scared of not moving forward, more scared of not progressing or not fulfilling their duty per se. They're not as scared of making mistakes. I think a lot of times people think that, if you're going to be this incredible leader, you're going to do everything perfect. Not true at all. In fact, the leader who becomes the most successful probably made the most mistakes, probably had the most failure, probably fell down the most times, missed the most sales, missed the most recruits, whatever it may be, whatever business they're in. The leader has failed more than anybody. That's why they lead, right?
Yeah.
And then I think another thing that I wanted to bring up today, especially this book. I was talking to someone about this book yesterday, and I think it's so good. It's John Maxwell's 5 Levels of Leadership. It's like you might have a lot of experience in leadership. You might have built some incredible organizations. You might have made a ton of money. You might have developed a lot of people. And so, like in just to give you an example, he has these 5 levels of leadership. Level 1 is a position. People follow because they have to, right? Which we see a lot of times in jobs. You get a job and you have a manager, and that manager used to be in your position. They got promoted. And so now you follow them because you have to, like follow your manager or else you get fired at a job, right? And a lot of people go into business thinking that other people need to respond that way too. And then there's permission. People follow because they want to, like, hey, I show up and I'm going to let you give me orders because I want to show up here, right? Then there's production. People follow because what you've done for the organization. So then people watch you start to produce. Then there's 4, which is people development, and that's people follow because of what you've done for them personally. And then there's 5, which is pinnacle, and that's people follow because of who you are and what you represent. So in other words, you've developed so many leaders. People know that you've reached the pinnacle of leadership. And what we have to remember a lot of times is, even if you're a level 5 leader and you've developed many successful people, I think, like, you're one of those guys, right? You are a level 5 leader. You've developed people who have gone on to become millionaires themselves, followed your example, and went on to win big. So you are a level 5 leader. However, a very, very important thing for leaders to remember is when they meet a brand new individual that says, okay, I'm going to allow you to pour into me, you're not a level 5 leader to them because they just met you. Mm-hmm. So it's like, at the beginning, you almost are saying like, all right, here I have this new person that I get to work with. I get to have the opportunity to develop. And if I'm going to teach them how to be an incredible leader, they have to watch me kind of move through these levels of leadership. And now it's going to happen a lot faster because you already have the experience. Mm-hmm. But every time you start developing a new leader, you're starting back at level 1, right?
Correct.
And that's how they look at you. Like, I remember we used to recruit people, and they would come in, and people may have told them my story or something, so they would put me on this pedestal. And I would immediately tell them, like, no, you don't need to put me on a pedestal. Like, I started just where you started. Mm-hmm. The only difference between me and you is when I started, I had a mentor just like me, mm-hmm. right? And just like I'm doing for you. And then they taught me what to do. I watched them, and then I did it over the years. And that's the only difference between me and you.
Yeah.
So right now, as you get started, right, I am a positional leader to them.
Yeah.
They feel like, I entered this organization or I got started with this individual, and I think I have to follow them.
Something that really helps with that when somebody comes in with that mindset, because most do,
yes.
because they come from maybe a job,
America.
corporate America, right? Is I would tell them, okay, Jeff, look, you're coming to work in our organization. I want to be very clear with you on something. You do not work for me.
Right.
I work for you.
Yes.
It's opposite, right? And so I want to make sure you understand that. So when you need something, now obviously, if I teach you and lead you and build a relationship with you and you don't respond properly, then that's going to be on you. I can't force you to do it, right? And I love you enough to give you all I got. But there's going to be times where, it's going to come down to, do I want to love you or lead you, right?
Right.
Do I love you enough to lead you? And sometimes it's you might be having a tough time in your life, and life's tough, and you might be having some of that going on right now, and I might need to come in and go, Jeff, look, I understand all that's going on, but look, dude, that's no excuse.
Right.
You're good enough, and you got to be able to compartmentalize that and go in anyway.
Right.
And those are the tough conversations that are hard to have, when you really truly care about people. But if you really truly care about people and want them to do better, you've got to be able to help them during those situations.
But don't you only think people can only help people get through those situations if they went through them first without excuses?
I do. And obviously not everybody has the same challenges, but you've got to have challenges that you overcame. Yes, absolutely.
And that's why I think it's important that a couple of things. Number one is we embrace the challenges. We don't look at them as like, oh my gosh, this is hard. I think I don't know what episode it was.
Don't pray for more challenges because you'll get them.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
There's plenty without you having to ask for them.
Yeah, you don't have to ask for them. Yeah, they're going to show up. But I also think that this is why when challenges arise, you need to be a person that is willing to lean into hard things. A couple episodes I was talking about, why I love fitness and lifting heavy things. And I think it teaches you mentally like, hey, here's something challenging. Let's push more into it, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm going to run a mile at whatever pace, like I've been doing weighted miles, right, with a vest, and breaking a 7-minute mile with 20 pounds on you is not easy. And so that's something that I'm consistently trying to get to. And so what I started doing is I'll start my workout with a weighted mile, and then I'll finish the workout with a weighted mile. And what I realized after my workout's done and then I run a weighted mile, it's hard, dude.
Oh, yeah. Dude.
The last half of it is like, I don't know if I can finish this. But then it's almost like once you're done, it's like, oh, that wasn't that bad. And that's what most challenges in leadership.
Yeah.
It's like when you're in it, it seems like, man, it's hard. And then when you're out of it, you go, oh, it wasn't that bad. And then a leader who's gone through challenges and learned to just lean into them, work hard through them. Sometimes you got to power through them. Sometimes you got to learn a new skill. Sometimes you got to build a new relationship. So I think that. And then I think from a leadership perspective, once you've become a leader because you've gone through those things, it's important to have the servant mentality, that you have a desire to watch the individual you're working with change, right? Because it's easy for a leader to listen to an excuse from somebody. Like they're gonna maybe they missed a sale 5 times in a row because of the same objection. It's easy just to say, "Oh, try again." Mm-hmm. But what's not easy to do is to really think about, how do I serve this individual? And you might have to have a tough conversation with them going, look, you've made the same mistake over and over and over and over. It's time to change. It's time to try a new approach. It may be uncomfortable for them. And so you're challenging them to do something uncomfortable. But the only reason you're willing to challenge someone to do something uncomfortable is because at certain times in your career, you realize I did this uncomfortable thing, and that's what led to me having more success.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. A challenging thing for me with that is I really do forget the challenging times.
Yeah.
And Lexi doesn't. She reminds me all the time. She goes, don't you remember we went through that exact same thing? I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I catch myself going, I felt like feeling sorry for him, Yeah. And she's like, dude, we did the same thing, And the fact is there's just no shortcut to true leadership. You've got to, which is a good thing. I mean, if you just arrived as this perfect leader and snap your fingers and do that, you wouldn't feel like a leader. You have to earn it. You have to build up that stamina or that, to be able to do it.
Experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think also I wanted to talk about, in my opinion, a great leader is also willing to let others lead. And lead. So, I'm always trying to identify, even the businesses we have now, I'm trying to identify those who are already leaders.
Right.
And they might need some coaching or training or some help on how to lead, but they're leaders. And they want to try some stuff, and I want to let them try some stuff and watch them and have accountability with them.
Yep.
And help them through that, because they might have a little bit better way of doing it than I did it. And I want to let them find that out.
I'm so glad you say this, because creativity is the most important thing anybody could have in business. And in leadership, control stifles creativity. Mm-hmm. And so a leader who desires control a lot of the time stifles growth.
I've been there.
Yeah, I think we all have.
Yeah.
Right. Again, going back to mistakes, we're all going to make mistakes. None of us are going to be perfect. We're going to do things we regret, say things we regret, do things we change, and that's how, when we move throughout our careers and you have more success, and then you can look back and go, oh, I changed this, or I changed that, or I changed this. And so allowing someone to get started, watch your example, but then have enough creative energy to make changes sometimes challenges people's ego.
Yeah.
Right?
It does. Yeah.
So if we can learn to suppress our ego and watch someone be creative, a lot of times they can do something more efficient or better than us. And then you can get that person to go teach other people inside of your organization. And this is when your organization starts to become better than you ever could build it on your own, because now you have other talents and other personalities and different people with different skills. And then they can use that creative energy to make your organization better. However, if all you do is desire to control that thing, it just becomes a bunch of replicated examples of you.
Yeah, I'm always looking for ways. Anything I ever do in business or in life to bring other people in, I want them to have the same opportunity as I have.
Yep.
If they want to go make more money or have more success or build more freedom than me, I want them to have that opportunity working with me than not with me.
Right.
You know, so I've always got to be ahead of you. I don't think that way. To me, you know, I want them to all come. I hope they come in and do better than I do.
Yeah.
And I think you learn a lot of, you know, just the way the leadership of even our country is right now. It's unfortunate that they tend to want to be at the top and dictate everybody. You know, it's in control, right?
Yep.
And if you can,
that's because it's not real leadership. Right? Real leadership doesn't desire to control people. Real leadership desires to inspire others to make positive impact.
More in flow state than control state, right?
Yeah.
And that's a tricky thing for me to learn, because I naturally want to control. And I think there's some power in that as leaders. You want to control, but if you got to learn how to control the control, maybe is what you've got to do. Meaning, you've got to go, hey, I've got to allow myself to let it happen and let others duplicate and build other leaders. I mean, if I'm 10 or 20 years down the road and I'm still the only guy doing it and I'm still having to do everything and I'm still having to outperform everybody, like I get it. You want to lead from the front. You want to set an example. But if I don't have a bunch of leaders developed to where I can at that point go, hey, look, I built this, and have leaders that have now, I guess, I don't know,
preceded
me. There you go. Better than replacing. Preceded me. I'm not, in my book, I'm not a good leader,
right.
You know? And I think, anyway, so.
Well, I think when I look at leaders, if there's somebody who's outperforming the person that taught them, that makes me respect the person that taught. What did you do to give someone the freedom, the creativity, the knowledge, the wisdom, the skill set to be able to perform beyond you, right? Isn't this what we want for our children? Right? I'll never forget, dude. One time I was having leadership challenges in my organization, and I was having an issue with somebody, and you said, Jeff, just treat them like you would your children. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't even a parent at this point. You know, I didn't have kids, so I didn't really understand it, but the concept clicked to me where I'm like, oh yeah, how would I want my children to respond to me in this situation? How would I respond to my children in this situation, right? And a lot of times we want our children, not a lot of times, I think all the time, we want our children to do better than we did. Mm-hmm. And because of that, when we look at our children, it's like we're handling it a lot more out of love and service than we are out of ego and control, which we see happen most of the time. Like, we're trying to control this result. But when you have children, you realize you cannot control your children.
You can't. And I think also the patience comes into play so much. I was just talking to somebody about this who has a young, just turned 19-year-old, and trying to help that individual become an adult, right? I mean, they are an adult age-wise, but they're not acting like an adult. They've got some lessons to learn. And, I think I'm looking at my daughter, Jersey. She's 16, just started driving, and just starting to teach her, hey, here's what a car payment is. Here's how much it is. Here's how much insurance is. Then there's gas. And her radiator just cracked the other day. So we got to go. The radiator is $550.
Awesome.
So she comes with me to see that, right? Yep. And I paid for it right now. I said, look, we'll make a deal here, and we'll figure out how to pay for this. But I wanted to start seeing that now at 16 versus 18 or 19, like this other individual doesn't have a clue, right? And when it comes to some of that stuff. And I want to, so that when she gets to 17, 18, she goes, oh, that car stuff's, stuff's expensive.
Yeah.
And so by the time you have a car, you become 18, 19, want to move out, you got rent, you've got food, I mean,
unexpected expenses like the auto insurance that comes in after every 3 months, or the air conditioner goes out.
I mean, you're making
whatever,
$2-3 grand a month. It's just not enough.
Yeah, no.
And so I think a lot of 18, 19-year-olds are going to be very shocked by that and are shocked by that. And that's where, as a parent, I'm going to be, I want to be patient, and and look, I don't have kids there. We'll see how I do. Right.
Yep.
But my thought process is, look, let's start teaching you really early on, and then get you in a place where when you're 19, 20, 21, you understand that $2-3 grand a month isn't going to cut it. You need to make $5-10 grand a month and build up from there. And you're probably not going to do that at a job. So let's start working on it, knowing that they're going to be, but I don't want it to be so big and intimidating they just give up.
Yeah.
Throw their hands up. I can't do it. Right.
It's like step by step. It's like you did this, right? This stuff you're talking about teaching was you, right?
Yeah.
You did the stuff.
I did. Yeah.
16,
and
17,
I remember how I think my car payment was like $160 back then, right?
Yeah.
And then my insurance was about $80-90 a month, and then gas was a lot cheaper. But I was back then I was making $4 or $5 an hour.
Yeah.
So it's just different.
I remember mine too, man. My payment was $324. I remember. It's funny how you remember those things when you have to. You have to do those. But I think a lot of times, like, we just have to remember, a leader is someone who does it first. Then they transfer that knowledge into someone else who's been watching them do it, right? Our kids watch us do these things, but they don't necessarily realize at the time, like, hey, you're putting a roof over my head, feeding me food every night, auto insurance, or all these things we pay for. And then as they start getting older, they go, oh. But then as a leader, we have to be willing to let people fall and make mistakes, and letting them learn how to overcome them themselves. Otherwise, they become dependent, not interdependent, which is another thing you always talk to me about, is becoming interdependent. Like, hey, we want to do it together, but we have the ability and the capability of being independent and doing it on our own, but we're much more powerful if we can do this together.
I want your help, but I don't need your help.
Exactly.
But I want your help, And sometimes Jersey doesn't want my help, but she really does.
Yeah.
But I want to get her to where
does.
she doesn't need my help,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And but yeah, there are definitely times like and she's a teenager, right? I don't know if anyone else goes through this, but she's like, I just want to move out, and it's just saying that as a teenager. But I'm trying to help her understand, Jersey, look, this is all the stuff you have provided for you right now while you're learning how to do all of this.
Yeah.
And she's going to have some breakdowns, and she does sometimes. Like, this is just too much, and I get it. I go, look, I get it. I understand it's hard, but you know what? What's hard now is going to become easy in 6 months or a year from now.
Yep.
Then we'll work on the next thing.
Yep.
And life is there's things right now I'm working on that seem hard and intimidating and impossible.
Yeah.
But I know maybe 5 years from now, it's going to go, oh, that was easy. Now what's the next step, right?
Yeah. Sometimes you look back at the goals you had set or the things you were trying to accomplish, and it's like embarrassing. It's so small, but at that point, it was like this huge obstacle you were trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
I remember when we first got started working with you, man, we came to this meeting and you had one of your guys show up. You go, how much did you make last month? And he goes, I made $10,000 last month. And I remember looking at that guy like, oh my gosh, he made 10 grand last month. And now I'm like, man, I would be so depressed, but it was like this obstacle that I saw as huge. And so I think all of us are going to go through those things. It's like we see these challenges, they're big obstacles. We overcome them, so we get stronger in the process. We learn new skills. We learned, how to overcome whatever it may be. And then we go to fight another battle or another challenge, and then here we go back into the valley, and we're going to have more challenges, and we're going to have to learn new skills, and we're going to doubt ourselves and all these kind of things. And then here we go climbing back up into achieving something else. And over the course of 5 or 10 or 15 years, you look back and you're amazed a lot of times if you continue on with that growth trajectory versus just settling, which is what most people do, right? I would say most people get to these times and they settle because they don't ever actually put the effort into learning new skills to make that challenge easier or to get creative. It's funny, one of the things that you're talking about with young kids is like when they struggle, what'll happen a lot of times, their parents will teach them like, hey, get some coupons or find a way to make it cheaper or like reduce the pain rather than, hey, look, here's how you get creative to make more money, or here's how you get creative to handle the situation in a growth way rather than a retreating way, right? And that massively changes the impact on our influence over other people.
Yeah.
Right?
What's interesting is you say that just kind of sparked a thought. You're talking about coupons or trying to save money, and I know you should do that. but I'll be honest. I mean, if I'm to be totally vulnerable on this podcast right now, I am a great consumer because I don't usually wait to buy things on sale. I just go, well, I'll just buy and make more money.
Yes.
And I've had that. And I think, looking back, now could I have done better and been more patient in some areas or cut coupons, so to speak, and done a little bit better shopping around? Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe that's a scarcity mentality too. I don't know. Right. Because I really do feel like, okay, this is something I need to do or an expense I'm going to have or something I want to go get for my kids or for me or whatever. And it's a little bit more than the other option, but I don't know. I think there's just an expansion type mentality when it comes to not trying to cut corners and pinch pennies.
I would say that God gave us the ability to be creative, and that's where we find this like natural joy. And you see that creativity happen in everybody, rich or broke, happy or sad. But you really see it in middle-class Americans about the end of the month when bills are due. You do. You see it a lot because when bills are due, people get creative. They
do.
Pawn stuff, coupons, Uber a little bit, whatever. They get creative to make their life. And then it's like the pain shows up. It's uncomfortable. Get creative to make these things happen. And it's like this pressure relief. Okay, let off the pressure. That can relax next month, right? So it's like they're always looking for a way to release the pressure. And I think the opposite of someone who's successful gets just as creative, but it's not to release the pressure. It's to get stronger under it, right? And so rather than saying, hey, I'm going to find a coupon or whatever, which I think it's always wise to be frugal and make wise financial decisions. But I'll be honest with you.
I'm not saying it's the best way I've been. I can do better, but yeah.
I think we all can. And I'll be honest, I've never been the coupon person either. But I don't think there's anything wrong with saving money, but I do think there is a challenge or an issue in your life if you're the kind of person looking to let up under pressure and release the pressure versus saying, how do I get stronger under pressure? And so I think the way somebody should respond if they want to continue to grow in their life is they get to the end of the month, so to speak, and go, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm tired of having to cut coupons at the end of the month. I'm tired of having to look for a way to make an extra $100 or $200 at the end of the month. This isn't going to happen to me. I'm going to develop a skill. I'm going to develop a mindset. I'm going to develop habits that allow me to make way more than I need. And so that when I get to the end of the month, I'm not looking for how can I save. I'm looking for what can I give, right? How much more people can I serve and what more can I do with the abundance that I have because I've looked to get stronger rather than look for a way just to make it work.
Something I saw you do really good as we're talking about this, I think, is some people have the philosophy, well, you're starting to have some success, you should go buy a really nice car with a car payment because that car payment is going to motivate you. And for some people, it might motivate them short term. I don't think it's going to be a long-term play because that new car is not going to be exciting in 6 months, or even 3 or 4 months. I mean, it wears off very quickly.
A car's a car.
Yep. So what you did, and I saw you do this, is you talked about, hey, get yourself in a position where you've got a good cushion. You've got a bunch of money saved. Let's say 6 months of income saved. You're putting good money in your mutual funds and your retirement accounts, and you've got your 3 fundamental accounts set up, and you're paying off your debts good. And the more you start saving in your accounts, and you see that number start growing, that's long-term motivational wealth that continues to motivate you long-term, right?
Yes.
So I think, learning, and everybody's a little bit different. Different things motivate different people, but I do, I kind of, early in my career, I went and bought I did save money. I had quite a bit of money saved before I bought my first nicer car. I bought a used Lexus IS 300. It was my first nice luxury car. Do you remember that little white car? And man, I remember going to buy that thing, just so nervous to buy it. And but I, it did. I would go buy something like that, and I would work harder because I never wanted to put my family in a bad financial position, because I got something that was maybe selfish. Yeah. And so I'm still like that today. Like, I'll go on some hunts and stuff now that cost money. Yeah. And so when I do that, it does. There is a element with me that goes, okay, I gotta buckle down and get focused, because if I'm going to do this selfish thing, hunting, I got to make sure my family is extra provided for and taken care of, not just money, but time and resources.
Well, I think that's that creative, right? Like you're looking for a way to be creative to accomplish the things you desire without having anybody else having to sacrifice.
Yes.
You're looking for a way to say, how can I make it all happen? And it can all happen. And that was me early on, is I wanted to set my family up financially. Like I never want myself or my family to struggle financially. So before I reward myself, we're going to be set.
Yeah.
And then any other reward beyond and above is something that I can go out and I can produce and I can make happen.
Yep.
Right. If you do that, you're going to feel good too. I've kind of always lived this philosophy of do it if you never regret doing it, do it. So like, the other day we were doing squats and Kelsey's like, I don't know if I can do another one. I go, I think you can do another one. She's like, I don't know. I go, are you going to regret it if you do another one? She goes, no. I go, then you need to do it.
Yeah, good point.
Right? So are you going to regret it if you go run a mile today? Are you going to regret it if you choose to do 75 hard?
I ran 2 miles with my vest on the other day, and I did regret it.
Dude.
It was rough. I was actually sick for like a day and a half, to be honest with you, because I pushed it, dude.
Yeah.
Like I ran straight for a mile, and then the way back I ran and did some squats like every.
Dang, yeah.
Dude, I was sick.
Dang, man.
I know.
Well,
and
good job for
in
pushing
decent
yourself
shape.
that hard, right?
I'm in decent shape, but I was like, dude, what the heck? And maybe I ate something a little bit bad too, but I was not in good shape for about a day and a half.
Wow. Yeah, so I just try to do that. Like, all right, if I look back on it and I'm glad I did it, who cares how I feel right now? Do it, because I'm not going to regret it.
Yeah.
If it hurts and you're going to look back on it and be glad you did, do it. You won't regret it. I've never heard somebody, I used to give this talk, I never heard someone regret building a big base shop. I never heard someone said, wish I would have built it smaller. I wish I would have made less money. I wish I would have had less freedom. I never hear someone do that. But all the time you hear someone say the opposite. Man, I wish I'd have got free. I wish I'd have made more money. I wish I'd have had a better life for my family.
Would have done it longer, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you hear these all the time. So at some point in your life, why don't you step up and be a leader who does it first, right? Yeah. Go do it. Stop waiting for someone else to do it for you. Stop waiting for the government to show up and change your life, or your mommy or your daddy, or someone else. Just make a decision. Say, you know what? I'm going to be the leader. I will lead, which means what? I'll do it first, and I'll provide an inspiring example to others, And I think that's just what leadership is like, hey, what am I doing today that's inspiring myself? And if I do that enough, other people are going to catch on. It's that whole saying, if you light yourself on fire, people are going to come watch you burn. They get close enough, they start on fire themselves.
Yeah.
That is leadership, right?
I wanted to discuss this with you just when it comes to relationships, because when you have great relationships with people, you can lead them for a longer period of time. However, you've got to also be very deliberate with your time and with the relationships you choose to build.
Yes.
And so many times when you're working with a lot of people, a common thing that I'll get from people all the time is, we need to go to lunch, we need to go to dinner. And I'm open to that if I have the time to do it, which is, guess how often? Not very often. I don't usually have extra time to go on if I'm going to go on a dinner, I'm usually going to go with my wife or my kids. And if I'm going to do a lunch, a lot of my afternoons are already tied up. Now, if it's somebody who is doing something and providing great value, like they're earning that, then I'm going to make time for that person. And it may be a lunch or dinner, maybe a weekend with them and their spouse, and to really get to know them and help them. But you've got to be deliberate with that. If you're doing that with every single individual, and I guess this is a question I would have for you, is how do you determine? I know how I determine. I determine it, but based on, like if I've got somebody who's just interested versus somebody who's doing it. That's kind of how I dictate.
Interested versus committed.
Interested versus committed.
Yeah.
If they're committed, I'm going to make extra effort to spend more time with that person. Yeah. Is that how you do it?
Yeah, I think I mean, first of all, I think the biggest mistake people make in leadership and business and life is investing time into the wrong people, right? Because I'll never forget, Jim Rohn said, early on I heard a tape of Jim Rohn's, and he said, I told myself I'm going to help this guy win or I'm going to die trying. He goes, guess what? I almost died.
Yep.
Right? And he goes, listen, you can carry one man on your shoulders, but you can't carry two. Right? And the point was that you can only do so much for other people before it starts draining you, right? So you've got to be very wise in who you invest your time with. And I think rule number one needs to be, I invest my time into things or people that charge me up, not drain me. So that's a very important thing, because if you invest your time into people that will drain you, not very long, they get rid of you and fire someone else.
Just pay attention to how you feel after you spend time with them.
Yes.
If you're filling up, you want to lock arms with that person.
Yes, and that's also a leader who's creating an environment. My goal was always to create an environment where somebody left, they go, I can't wait to come back there, because I leave feeling charged up. I leave feeling like my cup is full. I left, I had a new skill. I had some more knowledge. I felt good because of the environment. Someone believed in me, told me something special about myself, whatever it may be. So I think that rule number one is I always try to invest my time into someone who's going to charge me up, right? So if I'm investing my time into someone, which means if I'm spending time with them, I'm not spending time, whether it's with my family, with the Lord, or whatever it may be. There's other things that I could do.
Yeah.
And so if I'm going to instead invest time with them instead of into those other things, then I want it to charge me up. I want to make their life better, but I also want it to make my life better, right? So you can never have a positive relationship with somebody that is a give and take relationship. Mm-hmm. It has to be win-win. If somebody's losing, it's not very long before somebody feels resentful of that relationship, right? So this is why serving is so important. It doesn't matter if you feel like in my life, you've provided a ton of value in my life, right? So I've always felt like, what can I do to return that favor? And there's been times in business.
You've done it, brother. You've done it more tenfold.
I appreciate that. And I've intentionally tried to do that. And where times came and I had the opportunity to do that, I looked at it as an opportunity because you had done that for me, right? And so then these are like leadership things where I say like, all right, I'm not going to do anything that drains my battery, because who does that help?
Yep.
Nobody. So I'm going to invest my time into someone who charges me up. And so what is it? What are the things that charge me up? So like in business, if I'm going to develop somebody, it's tell them to do the things that take no talent. Show up early and stay late. Mm-hmm. Get 3 to 5 names and numbers a day. Recruit 2 to 4 directs a month. Write 5 to 10 personal sales. So then you start doing these things consistently, right? I watched you do them. Then I did them. So I started having similar results to you. Mm-hmm. It was like in business, you made $20,000 your first year, $104,000 your second. Mm-hmm. I made $15,000 my first year, $115,000 my second. Yep. Right? It's no coincidence. It happened because I saw your track record. It inspired me by watching you do it every day, and then I just did it, right? And I don't know how you felt at the time, but I'm sure long term it feels great going, man, finally someone's willing to do it, you know?
Seriously, because it seems like you go forever. Is anyone else ever going to do it, you know?
Right.
And that's where you find yourself, or at least I would find myself trying to control them or trying to like push them to do it instead of just being confident, just keep leading from the front, keep treating people well, keep inspiring, keep believing in them, keep selling the dream. And the right person eventually is going to come and they're going to rise to that challenge or that occasion and become that next leader, right?
Yeah, you're just not going to make somebody win. You know, you're just not. It's like a donkey is not going to win the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
And so if you're trying to win the Kentucky Derby, you better find a horse that can win the race. And then you put your time and effort and energy into the horse that has the ability to win the race, not try to turn a donkey into a Kentucky Derby winner, because then you're just going to be frustrated and then you're going to feel like you suck, right? And so it's like when you're developing people, pour your time and effort and energy into people who are willing to move forward on the things that you're teaching them or showcasing, right? Because leader is really someone who knows the way, shows the way, and then goes the way, right? So you're like, all right, they're going that way. Let's go.
Reminds me, you meet those people from time to time that are whining and complaining about life, right? They're whining and complaining, and there's a story of a guy walking down the street, and there's a dog whimpering and whining, and the owner of the dog's right next to him, and so the one guy walking by goes, "Hey, how come your dog's whimpering and whining?" He goes, "Because he's laying on a nail." And he goes, "Why the heck is he laying on a nail? Like, why doesn't he get up?" And the owner goes, "Well, because he's not uncomfortable enough to get off the nail."
Yep.
So he's whimpering and whining, but he's not uncomfortable enough to move, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's, the world's full of people that are just whining about life, but they're still not uncomfortable enough to do anything about it.
Right.
And as a leader, you're looking for those people that are definitely uncomfortable enough and they're moving off that nail. They just need a place to go. And
yes.
They need the world is desperate for leadership. And if you will choose to be a leader, which is doing the things we're talking about today, the stuff that doesn't take talent, doing it first, treating people well, you will attract people like a freaking magnet because there's not very many leaders in the world in comparison to those who are followers. Now, I also believe to become a great leader, you've got to be a great follower of great leaders, right?
You know, if I'm not mistaken, I think the word leadership in Hebrew means the best follower.
Okay, well, look at Jesus.
Exactly.
He followed his father.
So I got this
right?
book here. I brought it today. Jesus CEO's phenomenal book on leadership. Jesus CEO, and
he was the best follower.
Yeah,
and also the best leader.
Exactly. And I think that if we go look at biblically and go, all right, what is leadership? Biblically is being the greatest follower of, when it comes to Jesus, obviously the example. When it comes to leadership, and a great example. Here's what I'm trying to accomplish. I need to follow this great example and be the best follower of that example, and then naturally you're going to have other people follow, right?
Yeah, so good, man. Good stuff today.
I think another book I just brought a couple books that I thought would be good for people. Pushing Up People. I think this is a good one too.
One of the best.
Yeah, everybody should read this. It doesn't matter whether you're in leadership, whether you just want to make people around you feel special, whatever it is. But there's so many. I believe a leader makes people around them better through their example. And a lot of times just our words, not a lot of times, always, the words we say to other people around us matter more than anything. But you're never going to say incredibly kind things to other people, and you're not going to look for great things in other people if you're not constantly doing that to yourself.
Right.
So I think internally we have to have enough awareness to go, look, I'm flawed. I'm not perfect. I have a lot of mistakes, and I don't feel attacked if somebody I used to. So, like early on in our career, you used to tell me, hey, Jeff, you should figure. It was like I almost felt like, dude, I would get offensive because I feel attacked. Mm-hmm. And then as you grow and your level of awareness raises, you're almost looking for it. You're looking, like the other day we went to a presentation, I do this presentation, we leave, and I'm like asking for people's feedback, and nobody gives feedback. I'm like almost offended that someone isn't telling me to change something, right? Like I'm looking for someone to...
Opposite of what it was 15 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so once you have that in yourself, and that's why I think self-improvement is so important, because then you're constantly looking for ways to make yourself better and realizing, hey, it's okay, I'm not perfect, I'm just trying to get better.
Yes.
But then once you have that mindset, then you start doing it with other people, and then you're looking for ways to make other people perform better. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, like we talk about the restaurant, like just telling the guy who's filling your water, hey, thank you, I appreciate you. Without you, how would this restaurant function?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he feels good, and guess whose water stays full the entire night? You don't have to ask, right? So a lot of times it's just with people around you, what you appreciate appreciates. Mm-hmm. And so do you appreciate people around you? Like, do you appreciate the valet guy who just brought you your car? Do you appreciate the person who just bagged your groceries? Do you appreciate that you have a grocery store to go to with, 862 different options?
No kidding.
And I think if we appreciate these things and the people in those places, you become a person they remember. They allow you to influence their life because when you're around, they feel good. And I think Pushing Up People is a phenomenal, phenomenal book about how to make people around you feel like they deserve to perform at a high level around you. Because sometimes, you'll even see it with parents. My son is a soccer player, and we'll be at the soccer game, and you'll see the difference of coaching. There's all spectrums from super quiet to loud screaming.
Nope.
And what I've kind of realized is the players that perform the best are the ones with coaches who are very solid in the fundamentals of how kids feel.
Yeah.
Not just the way, not the skills of, hey, can you kick the ball, or can you run a play, or can you pass, or can you dribble? But it's, how does this child feel?
Yes.
And can I... And some of them are louder about it, right? Anybody who sports, some coaches screaming, yelling, and others are quiet. But out of all those different personalities, I try to pay attention to the coach constantly. And I've realized the best teams are the coaches, not necessarily their personality, but the things they focus on. And that's, how does that child feel while they're playing?
Yes.
And if they do a good job of making that child feel good, that child is probably going to play good.
Yeah. You see that that's a good point, because you'll watch games sometimes with kids. It's just everything's magnified, in my opinion, because the kids' emotions are so much more on edge than adults, right?
Yes.
And so a kid might make a mistake, and if the coach or the parents like flip out, like, "What are you doing? What the heck?"
Yep.
You just see that kid just get the wind knocked out of him, right?
Yep.
And defeated. And you ever try playing at your best when you feel defeated? You can't.
Nope.
So it really does, they're already beating themselves up. Hey, man, great. Hey, look, no big deal. Brush it off. We all do that. Now you know what to do better next time. You're awesome. Let's make a great play night. We're glad we have you as part of the game.
Yep.
And what a different way to, so I'm trying to do that with these kids I'm coaching right now, right? Because got a couple of their dads are helping us, and they're awesome. They're helping a bunch, and they have different styles of coaching. But I'm really trying to pay attention, because the team last year that Bridger was on, I wasn't the coach, but I would watch some of the parents, and they'd lose it if their kid made a mistake, and their kid would just like have a terrible game, and we'd lose a game.
Man, think about this, because how often do people do this in business?
Yeah,
right.
Or with their kids, or with their spouse.
Anybody.
Yeah.
Right? You make a mistake and freak out and, whatever, and criticize that the individual made a mistake, rather than, I think we've all done it.
Yep.
So
Emotions get to us all the time.
I've done this. Yeah. And I've even had to tell my son sorry. Like, hey, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have responded that way. Right. I'm not perfect. And I think sorry goes a long ways, by the way. We're coaching someone, we can be sorry, and we can make mistakes and still be a leader and still get better and all these kind of things. But yeah, I think if you see a child make a mistake, it's an opportunity to reinforce in that child that the mistake doesn't matter. Your attitude about the mistake is what matters.
Yes.
And so when we see that, it's also the same in everything else in life. I just got done putting a pool and outdoor kitchen, all this kind of stuff in my backyard, and it didn't go great. It was COVID, right? So all this stuff was delayed and labor, and it was frustrating. And you know what I did? Every time a construction crew showed up, I'd order pizza or whatever, and I'd just show up, and I was just appreciative that those guys were there. So you know what they did when it got to the end is they gave me a discount, right? So
dang, awesome. You don't see that.
I'm like, I didn't ask.
Yeah.
I didn't. And the guy says, no, we just appreciate you for being understanding in the entire process, and it took twice as long as we thought it was going to take. And I didn't expect it. I just thought, hey, how would I want to be treated? If I'm frustrated already, doesn't it make it nice if the homeowner's like, hey, dude, you want some pizza? Or if they show up early, I'd get some donuts or bring them out coffee or whatever it may be.
Really good.
Just to let them know, hey, I appreciate that you're here at my house and not, your other clients.
No kidding.
And so whether it's building a business, whether it's getting something done in your community or with young kids, pushing up people in the way we treat people is going to determine a lot about how we, I guess, how other people treat us in response to certain situations. Mm-hmm. And if they treat us good in that situation, they allow us to influence them, now you become a leader.
Yeah.
Right?
Good.
One last book I think before we're done I just want to talk about. This is another good one. This is probably the first book I ever read on leadership. And
yeah, because mine too.
Is it?
I think so.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, Developing the Leader Within You. John Maxwell, he's got some phenomenal books, but I think this book on developing leadership and what it really is and what are the qualities of a leader. You can never go wrong with fundamentals like this. So I just want to mention that book as well.
Yeah, it's one of his very first books, I believe, isn't it? Maybe his first main leadership book, maybe.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it says right here, 21 irrefutable laws of leadership and failing forward. So maybe he'd written those two before, but there's just so many great things in this book when it comes to leadership. Like, what is leadership? Influence, right? Mm-hmm. Do people allow you to influence them? Okay, if they do, then you're a leader, Priorities. It's important to have priorities as a leader, Yeah. Integrity, doing what you say you're going to do. Creating positive change, problem solving, attitude, your most appreciable asset, which is people, vision, self-discipline, and then staff development, and I mean, I think don't all of us need to learn all these things, One of the things I'm constantly trying to do, man, is at every time in my life, I'm trying to consume information that not only makes me better, but because I'm better, the people around me in my life are better, mm-hmm. and that everybody's life is better, it makes our community better. I would just think about that. How much better would our lives be if every day, everybody in our community woke up with one goal? Let's just make it better today.
It would transform the entire world.
It would.
Wouldn't take that many people to get on the same wavelength to transform the entire world. It really doesn't take that many in comparison to how many people are out there.
Seriously.
Because it compounds so fast, right?
Just whether it's politics, right? And waking up and saying, I'm going to make our country better. Like what will make our country better? Whether it's like the healthcare system, like, you know what makes our...
I think there's actually a number. Sorry to cut you off. I think it's like if 8,000 people got on the same wavelength, it would transform the entire... just the vibration of the whole planet.
Really?
It's like 8,000 people. Which is
the number like where they influence the next group.
Yeah, something like 0.5% squared or something. I can't, something like that. But Joe Dispenza talks about it actually.
Okay.
And so that's my source if anybody wants to check it out.
Maybe they can send us the article too.
Yeah.
But I think if we all lived our life, and that's the whole premise, I think, of this podcast is solid. Like, hey, what do we got to do to live a solid life in all areas of our lives? And at the foundation of that is just waking up every day and go, let's use today to get better, And by the way, that's why I love 75 Hard. I love 75 Hard because I was talking to Kelsey last night. You know what I love about 75 Hard is there's like nothing in it that you do that you're like, oh, that's not a positive thing. It's like
it's also not impossible, right? It like doesn't take talent to do 75 Hard.
No, it just takes discipline, right?
Yes.
Like doing 2 45-minute workouts. Yeah. Rain, sleet, snow, hail, doesn't matter. You just do it. That's discipline. It's not hard. I mean, an hour and a half in a day. You got 24 hours, an hour and a half. And so do you regret working out? No, I don't think anybody, right? Sometimes you're sore and maybe you have this physical regret, but long term, you're not going to regret doing it as a discipline every single day. And so I love that. I love, one of the things Kelsey and I would do when we were doing 75 Hard is we would do weight training exercise, and we would do some sort of like a walk or play soccer with the kids or some kind of like athletic, something that just keep us moving in the evening. Well, what we started noticing about that as we were doing that before we went to bed is how much better our children slept. So we sleep better, our kids sleep better. It created this habit where our kids started knowing, okay, we're doing this. It's almost bedtime, which is awesome, right? So we get a workout, our weight training workout in the morning, we get another workout at night, but it's all these other benefits that we get from it.
Get all their energy out so they can actually go to bed.
Yeah, exactly, right? And then you're following a diet. This is good for you. You're drinking a gallon of water. This is good for you.
I think a gallon of water is going to be hard in the wintertime, no?
Not for me. Maybe bad. Some people. I just carry this thing, dude. So, I've had this thing for like 10 years.
I do drink a lot, so yeah.
Yeah, so, right. You do that and then follow a diet or read 10 pages. It's like all of these things are going to make your life better. And I think that's the power of 75 Hard. But I don't, if anybody like Andy Frisella, who's had a lot of success that started 75 Hard, we used to have in a business a 90-day madman cycles. Like, all right, you do this for 90 days, you're going to change your life. And that's why I did 75 Hard for 90 days is because we did a 90-day madman cycle in business. It was like I did 4 cycles, 90-day cycles in business, and those 4 cycles changed my life. Every time we did one of those things, our business went to another level. Well, the same thing is with 75 Hard. I just did it for 90 days because I like the 90-day thing. And after 3 months, I was dramatically changed, right? And it wasn't like before 75 Hard. I did work out every day for the most part. I took some rest days. I did eat pretty good. But just having that consistent focus of getting better and making the commitment up front is incredible, man. So I just look at these small things and go, if we all made a decision to just wake up and get better every day and live solid lives, how much better would our communities be? How much better would our country be? And then our country would even be how much better. We've already got people, risking their lives to get here.
True.
It would only get better and better, and then you get the chance to attract massive talent, skilled people that want to be here instead of somewhere else. That's the beauty of America, and I think that's the foundation of our country. If you go look at the founding fathers and really what was their desire for creating this country, these concepts are all in there.
Yep,
right?
It is true leaders.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
Awesome, dude.
Okay, man. Good stuff. Appreciate all your knowledge and preparation over the years. This is, the good thing about doing this is we've both had, couple decades of experience of doing a lot of these things and been around some really phenomenal leaders ourselves that have a lot more experience than us.
For sure.
And we just try to steal a lot of their stuff, to be honest, right?
That's all. Yeah, that's all it is, right? Just copying. Most everything I learned, I took from someone else. Most of it from you at the beginning, So thank you too, man, for doing it first and providing an opportunity for us to be able to make it happen.
Well, you're welcome, and I appreciate you and your contribution to my life as well.
Yeah, man. Awesome.
Cool.
Well, thank you guys. For those of you guys that plugged into Solid, appreciate it. And keep, if you would, please keep sharing. Please keep giving us feedback. There's a lot of you guys that are giving us feedback, and it helps us a lot. So please keep doing that. If you want to send us a direct message on social media or if you have our cell phone numbers, we really appreciate the feedback about the podcast. It helps us a lot. So thanks, guys. Remember, stay solid.